Hello everyone, it's Carrie from Inky Bee Journals and Ephemera. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back and choosing to hang out with me for another day. So in a previous video, I showed you how to do the 2-hole stitch binding. Today I will show you how to do the 3-hole stitch binding. Now these 2 stitches are otherwise known as a pamphlet stitch, and they are 2 of the most commonly used stitch binding methods to make junk journals and notebooks. Now I will leave this here for a moment so you can take a photo if you like, so that you can write this down or just keep it for your reference. Now, obviously I've made this in 2018, and it was the very first journal that I made when I started making journals. I started off making all-purpose general notebooks and cards, and I got into doing junk journaling from there. So this was the very first journal I made, and it has 3 signatures, and it is a common way, as I said, to do binding of signatures into your journals. And as you can see, that's what I've done here. There is 3 holes here, and they are tied in the center, and I've just put a little bow there as well. And that's how I've stitched all 3 of these signatures into this journal. While I was making another journal, just to use as a reference journal, I stopped counting. I only wanted 4 signatures, and I forgot to stop counting, so I ended up with 5. So I decided, rather than waste the other signature, that I would just quickly make a simple scrapbook paper based cover. So I just took a scrap piece like this, and I just placed it over the front of my signatures, wrapped it around, and then cut along this edge, and then cut off any excess at the bottom that was too long. Once I had done that, I was left with this scrap. Now I'm not going to throw this away, because this is plenty big enough to use in a future project. Once I had my signature together, and before I go any further, I will just quickly show those of you who don't know how to put a signature together, how to do it. And for those of you who are still learning what different terms are, if you're not sure what a signature actually is, it is a group of pages that are put together. They are stacked on top of each other, and they are folded in half, and that becomes your signature. So this, minus the cover, is my signature with all of these pages in it. Now, to quickly show you how I make the signatures, I have 2 sheets of printer paper. Now this is just my standard size printer paper, which is an A4 size. It doesn't matter what size your paper is. It can be bigger, it can be smaller. The reason it doesn't matter is because when we're putting a signature together, the process is the same regardless of the size of your pages. So we start off with one piece of paper, and we need to fold it in half. Now, you might like to fold it from the bottom to the top. I like to fold it from side to side because it's a bit easier for me to see that way. So you just fold one short side over to the other short side. Line them up as neatly as you can, as evenly as you can on this side. Run your finger over this side to the folded side and just use your thumb and your finger to run along that line, and that just creases that fold down. You want to repeat that process for all of the pages that you choose to put in your signature. I have 2 here. Now to turn these into a signature, we do what I like to call the taco hand method. That is where we hold our hand like this, as though we're holding a taco shell. You take one of your folded pages and the folded side goes down into your hand like that. Then you open that page up. Then you repeat the same process with the rest of your pages, placing each of them inside the pages before. So we take the next page, we get the folded side, we place it down into the crease of the page before, and we open it up. And we repeat that process for all of the pages you have for your signature. Once you have all your pages together, turn it around, use your 2 forefingers to press gently at the sides here. This will just help level out all of these so that they're all flush together. Then you can use your thumb to press down into that crease line, and that just helps to press all of your folds together nice and tightly. Then you can fold it in half, turn it back around, give it a tap on the top and the bottom, and that just helps to make sure that you're flush across the top, you're flush across the bottom, and then down the side on the right hand side you may get some fanning of your pages. Now that is perfectly normal. That is what happens when you stack pages together. You fold them, because all the pages you put before the top pages push forward the next page that little bit, and as a result you end up with a little bit of fanning on one side. Now if you don't like that, you can always just trim it to make it flush. So you have your signature ready. So I have my signature here, and I have my little cover piece. Now because I had pre-made this, I already have the holes in here, but I will explain to you how to do this for those who are not familiar with it. You will need a pencil or something that you can mark with, and I just eyeball it. You don't have to specifically measure. If you do want to measure, you can just grab yourself a ruler, place it just below your crease line and put a mark wherever you want to put your holes. For those who don't want to measure, just eyeball it roughly where you think you need to put your holes, so far in from each end and into the center, and just put a dot in your crease line with your pencil, and do that for each of the 3 holes that you need to make, one in the middle and one at either end. Once you've done that, you need to clip your pages together, and all of your pages together with your front cover piece. or your outer cover piece. Now I'm using these large paper clips. If you don't have these, that's okay, because there's different types of paper clips out there that you can use. These are just what I have available to me. You can get these online. You may be able to get them in a good craft store near you. And we do this to help hold our pages together. We also do this to stop our pages moving around when we are punching our holes, or when we are binding our pages together. So to punch our holes, we need something to punch with. Now, if you're doing a much smaller book than this, you might be able to use a hole puncher like this, which to do the ends of this book might have been all right to do, because where we've got these holes is far enough to the edge that we can reach in to get to them. However, we'd never reach to the centre. So how do we fix that problem? Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can get yourself a bigger form of a hole punch system. And to do these ones, I've actually used this. Now, this is my Crocodile Big Bite. And I will place this here so that you can take a photo of that if you would like to look it up. It is a Crocodile Big Bite, and it's made by We Are Memory Keepers. This is a paper punch, a hole punch, and I like this tool because it is a multi-purpose tool, and it is much bigger and stronger for going through several layers of papers. This allows me all of this space here to slide my book into. As you can see, I could put the whole book in through there, that way or that way. And that allows me to get to the centre of bigger books. This allows me two different sizes. I'm not sure if you can see this in the camera, but this allows me two different sizes in hole punches. So up the top here, it has 1/8 of an inch, and then if I slide it across, it has a 3/16 inch. Now, I will probably use the smaller one in most cases to do these small holes, which is really all you need for book binding, because we're not threading something bigger and thicker through like a thicker rope or a thick piece of ribbon or something like that. We really don't need the bigger hole. This is also an eyelet setter, so you can punch your hole and then you can set your eyelet, which is what these little pieces here are. You can move these about to set it to whatever you need. Now, these are not the cheapest item, I have to admit. However, if you are in the market for something like this that is good quality, it will go through many layers as opposed to just something like this. It's a bit easier on the hands, which for me is great because I have arthritis these days. And it's just, I find I go to it quite frequently because I do a lot of book binding. I decided that it was worth me purchasing something like this. Alternatively, you can use an awl or a paper piercer, and I'll place this here just so that you can take a photo of that if you need to. So I use this one most of the time. It's a paper piercer, otherwise known as an awl. That's AWL. And you will often hear other crafters, myself included, will often refer to this as a Poki tool. So it comes with this sharp tip on the end, so you do need to be careful because they can hurt if you stab yourself with these. And the way we use those is we place the tip wherever we want to poke our hole. In this case, I will have had a dot marking here, and then you poke it through until it comes through the other side. Now I think I've got this facing the other way to how I initially had it. Yes. So once you've got your marking, you put the tip on that point where your mark is and you poke it through to the other side. Then you can pull it back and you can do the same thing at the bottom and at the top, or in this direction it's the left and the right. And then you will have poked through the other side. Now we are ready to start our binding. So to bind, we are going to need a needle and some thread. Now I am using, I hope the camera can pick this up, I am using a big eye needle. This is a regular needle because it has a pointed tip. Now please bear in mind you do not need to have a pointed tip needle. You can buy online binding kits that have a blunt end needle in them, and that is really all you need to use. I'm just using this because this is what I have available to me. I'm using a big eye needle because we need a bigger eye in the top here so that we've got plenty of space for threading through something that is a little bit thicker than just thin cotton. So I will be using this needle. Now I am using embroidery thread. You do not have to use embroidery thread. There are different things that you can use to bind your books with, and embroidery thread is just one of them. Now I do have a list here. Just move these out the way for a moment, of the things that you can use for binding threads. Embroidery thread, which is what I'm using. Cord, like the ones that you get in your shoelaces or your clothing to pull your hoods tight or tie up your trousers. You can use baker's twine. You can use yarn, as long as it's a strong one, because some yarns will break easily when you put a bit of tug on them. So you need one that's strong if you're going to use yarn. You can use elastic. You can use ribbon. You can use waxed cord. Now, waxed cord is a common thing that people will use for putting together junk journals. You can use jute rope, the thin jute rope, or the thicker one if you want to put bigger holes. And you can even use leather strapping, that is the thin string-like pieces of leather that are sometimes used in wrist straps and some leather clothing. So you're basically looking for anything that is thin enough to go through your holes and anything that is strong enough not to break when you apply tension to it. So I'll leave that there for a moment for you to take a photo so that you can keep that for your reference. Okay. Now we'll come back to our binding method. So I am using embroidery thread because I know that when I put some tug on this, you can see that it's not breaking. So it's pretty strong, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to cut myself about 2.5 times the height, if you look at it, the height of this journal. So 1, actually if I turn it this way it'll be easier. 1, 2.5, and just snip that. Now we can thread our needle onto one end of this embroidery thread and leave yourself a little bit of a tail at the end that you have threaded on. Now you do not need to put a knot in the other end, and I'll show you why in a moment. So what I like to do when I've got these big paper clips on, or anything that I'm using to hold these pages together, I just slide a little bit of it, the end of it, the end that doesn't have the needle, under the clip. It just helps hold it there so that it doesn't completely go through the holes. Then you get your needle and you go through the middle hole. Now, before I start, you need to decide whether you want your binding knot inside your journal, inside your signature, or do you want it on the outside? Either way is acceptable. That is just personal choice. Just remember, if you want it on the outside, then you start your stitching from the outside. If you want your knot to be on the inside, you start your stitching from the inside. And I want my knot on the inside, so I'm going to start my stitching from the inside. So all you need to remember is middle, turn it this way, it'll be easier to understand. Middle, top, bottom, middle. So we go in through the middle from the inside to the outside, and we pull it through until that is roughly straight there. It's not pulled very tight, but it's pulled through enough. Then you go to the top hole from the outside to the inside, and you pull through until it's straight along this edge here. Then you go all the way down to the bottom and you pull it through again till it's straight through the middle, and then you go back to the middle and you pull it through again. Now you can remove your needle from your thread. You can take your tail out from underneath the clip, and what you need to look for is one tail and the other tail on either side of this middle thread. So don't have them both on the same side. Make sure they're under the thread and either side of this middle thread. Give it a little bit of a tug just to make sure everything's tight, and then just make yourself a knot in the center. And I usually do a double knot. Now at this point you can just clip it off short, or if you want to, you can do a little bow if your ends are long enough, just like that. Then you can remove your clips, and there you have your binding completed. You have your signature and your cover all bound together. Your binding is on the outside here. And if you don't like the look of this binding on the outside, you can always cover it up with a little bit of decorative washi tape or a bit of lace or something like that to hide it. But that's basically it, and that is exactly how I have stitched all of the signatures into this one as I showed you before. So they've all been stitched in the same way. Now this has been stitched, these signatures have been stitched directly into the spine, so the stitches are exposed. But that doesn't matter, because you might do something like I've done here in this little one, where I've actually just covered up those stitches a little bit with a little bit of crochet lace. And this is just a little notebook that I made out of some scrappy pieces, just with some plain pages. These have been stitched together with a 2-hole binding stitch, and just a couple of little crochet lace pockets, and that's basically it, and a bit of ribbon to hold it together. So if you've liked this tutorial and you would like to see more tutorials, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so that YouTube can send you notifications each time I upload new content. The next video I'm hoping will be out the next few days. I will be busy over the next few days, but I will try to find time to get another video in before the end of Sunday, at least Sunday in Australian time zone. Until then, I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you then. Bye.